In today's video, we're going to be doing a little girl's dress, a very simple dress. So we're going to choose the child avatar from our resource library. Click OK to open the file, and here she is. So we're going to be using our pen tool to draw out the bodice. And by now, if you followed the other videos, you know exactly how to draw out a bodice and a very simple dress pattern. Now in this video, I'm going to also bring in the bow that was previously done in the other video. So we're going to import the bow, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's going to just be a very simple application because we're just going to be stitching the bow onto the dress. That's it. Now in other videos, I will show you how to not only stitch the bow onto the dress, but how you can really transform a garment, um, change it up with bow styling. But this one, it's just gonna be very simple attachment. Here we're checking to see if it's too tight, the bodice, but it's not tight. Sometimes you have to use always the skin offset as you've seen in the other videos by clicking on the avatar and going to the property editor and increasing its value very slightly. In that way, the garment doesn't, and the skin, they don't collide. You don't see those holes in the garment. So here we're going to be just drawing out a skirt, and very simple. We're going to make the width. It's going to be wider because we want a little bit of gathering near the waist. For even more gathers, you make it wider. So the pattern piece, if it's wider, you get more gathers, as you can see. We can make it a little longer. That means we choose the edit pattern tool. We click, we highlight the line, and we just drag down. You can hold shift and drag down if you want to be more precise. And here, if we understand that the front pattern, we sewed it on and it looks okay, we just go ahead, proceed by copying and pasting it and putting it to the back. Yeah, we simulate and we're going to sew the sides of the skirt. Sometimes it's easier to do it in the 3D pattern window, sometimes in the 2D pattern window. And we simulate again. So now we're going to draw the sleeve pattern. And we want a short sleeve, short and puffy with a cuff. So it's being drawn in this way because if you draw it out like the rectangle in that way, you understand more or less, you approximate the width of um the armhole. Here for a curve, you can do many things and you can even delete the point to just automatically have a curve. That means that point, the apex, you just convert it to a curve point. Now here, if there are no points, we do have to add one, remember, because it has to be two segments, one sewn to the front part of the armhole and the other the armhole pattern and the other one sewn at the back. Here I'm just going to curve it a little, just fine tune with the edit curve tool. And here we're going to just put it into place. Here there was, I had to flip it orientationally because it wasn't flipped before. So it was on the wrong side. Here we're going to just fix this into place. You put it in front, you turn it, use the gizmos to help you. Note the way it's being turned and shifted and placed closely. And then get some extra help from the arrangement points tool. Now, when you think it's all in position, you can just take off those points. Use a segment sewing tool. There again, position it as much as possible to avoid any collisions or any problems with the fabric just going a bit wonky. Okay, now it's good. Now this is very tight and I want it shorter. So if it's too tight, what you do is you double click in the middle. You always extend it. You want it wider. You simulate. If it's wide enough, then if you want it shorter, you select the edit pattern tool. And you click and you just make it shorter. You drag up. Okay. And that's good enough. Now remember, I want a cuff. So with the edit pattern tool selected, I'm going to right click on that line and just add the ISO line. Okay. So this adds an internal line for me and I'll cut and sew. And that part that was cut and sewn, that little panel there, I'm going to shrink it. I'm going to just like make it less wide, narrower so that it can create that cuff. You could either create a separate cuff, but it's really a lot more work that way. Maybe in some cases you need to do it that way, but for now we can do it in this easy way. And here we want a symmetric pattern with sewing, that is symmetric pattern with seam. Sometimes when you bring in do the symmetric pattern with seams, it depends. Sometimes there are little glitches. The sewing relationship is not automatically developed on the other side, and that does happen. That could happen too. And sometimes it, of course, it depends on maybe symmetry on the garment pieces where you're putting the symmetric pattern piece. But sometimes it just doesn't work. Now, here we have our sleeves. If you want it a little bit puffier, then at that point you could just select them and just put up the pressure and simulate and play with that and see if it's to your liking. So we're going to choose on a fabric for this dress. I'm looking for something in polyester. And something that's lightweight. So you can always read the preview materials, read the information, and it gives you information about also the weight, whether it's woven or whatever. So you just, could check that out. It could be very useful. So I've chosen this polyester. I think that's good enough. And what I'll do is just apply to the garment. Simulate, and here it is. I'll turn on the particle distance to 10 so we see a little bit more detail. Okay, so more or less, gonna just turn up the pressure here, simulate, and just see exactly, pull out the fabric, and see how it comes out. Turning on the particle distance even more because I want to see some more detail. And the lower the particle distance, then the more you see details emerge. Now here I'm going to bring in a print. And here I'm looking to find a folder where I've put this print. Okay. So it was a folder on the desktop, and I brought in this print and applied it to the polyester fabric. Now, I'm going to be saving the project because I need to open another project, and the other project, it's going to be the project with the bow. So this is once being saved. If you notice in the bottom left hand corner here, you see save project succeeded. Now I'm going to open this project here, the bow, that blue silk bow that I had previously done. With the dialog box, you add it. Very important, add it. Make sure these boxes, the one with garment is ticked, and you click OK. Now, here you're able to bring in what you've saved previously, which is very important. Now, if you notice in the 2D window, the proportions are not the same. This bow is really big compared. So what you need to do is you need to make it smaller. So you already know how to do this by double clicking in the middle and just bringing it down, just clicking and dragging on that point diagonally. And here we've made our bow much smaller. And we want to just get it as close as possible to the dress because we need to sew it onto the dress. Here I'm going to bring down the particle distance of the bow because if you've noticed the band of the bow, the middle, you see it's doing something really bad. So we have to fix that problem before we sew it onto the dress. So, okay, besides bringing down the particle distance, for example, the band of the bow, you can layer it. For example, you go into the property editor, you see layer, and you can put 1 because it's the first layer. Okay, so we've brought down the particle distance, we've layered it, and here we're troubleshooting. What else can we do to fix this problem? So remember this bow, everything was really intact. So what we need to do is we need to go and we need to add some pins. We need to add some pins at the top. We need to add some pins at the bottom and at least to the sides because we need this bow to stay put while the loops of the bow, they fit in properly the way it was before, the way, okay, it had fit before. So here we tried it and nothing. And this is because we need to add an extra pin. Just Control Z undo this because it went all wonky. We need to add extra pins at the bottom and we really need to anchor it all around. Okay, so we've added a pin here and then we can even take the pins and pull. Okay, so practically we're pulling the fabric when we add the pins and we drag like that. We're pulling the fabric out. We're pulling the fabric out, very important to know, because we want then when we simulate, we want everything to fit into place. Okay, everything goes into place. So now we've pulled the fabric. And if you think that's sufficient, you go and simulate and see what happens. Okay, so now we have an idea that the, the fabric, which is the band of the bow, Of course, it was all clipping with the fabric of the loops of the bow. So now we have it all extended properly, okay? So it fits around properly the way it should. Now what we do is we get rid of these pins. We get rid of them one by one because we still want those two, the pins that came in with the bow, we still want them to be there. Because here we want to simulate and we want to be sure that everything is in place. Okay, so now everything is in place. So now we're sure about it. So it's a way of troubleshooting. So we want to sew now this bow, sew it in place. In the 2D pattern window, you need to put things in order to understand sometimes what I'm sewing, because it can get really confusing. So we have to sew the band to the top of the skirt of the dress, okay? And we've shifted it to the side because I think it would look pretty there um, to the side here. Okay. So I'm slowly turning the bow and I'm turning it so that I can just have you see that the band here, we click on the band and we understand the position in the 2D window where we're going to apply this internal line. So we're going to put that horizontal internal line because we need that to be sewn to a point really at the top of the skirt, okay? So with our internal line there, okay, everything's good. We're going to turn the bow again. So we turned it in position. Okay, we're going to pull it out a bit because I want you to see then exactly where we're going to sew this bow. So we can sew it right there in that position there. And that line on the band, the internal line, was about 3 centimeters like that. And this is the same, about 3 centimeters. We don't have to be exact. And okay. So we're going to sew that one to that one. Okay, it's not working yet. We can do it in the 2D or 3D window. In this case, it could be less confusing in the 2D window. Whatever works for you. So here, if I start sewing, it gets all wonky because we still have the pins attached. So we need to get rid of those pins. So with the pin box tool selected, we right click and we delete all pins now. We don't need any more pins. Let's go back to the segment sewing and see what it says. Okay, it's overlapping. It's overlapping because I there was a sewing relationship before. Okay, now there's something definitely wrong here because this is not the way it's supposed to be attached. So here, when in doubt, go to the edit sewing tool and delete. You can control Z to undo the operation. And then if you have any doubts, you go to the edit sewing tool, delete the sewing relationship, or you can reverse it if you think it's all twisted. And you put a new sewing relationship. That means resew it again, okay? But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just move the pattern of the band, the band of the bow, very close to the where I have to sew it onto the skirt. So sometimes you do this, you want less confusion. More overlapping going on. Okay, let's see what that's all about. Here we edit sewing again, and we're gonna delete. Maybe it has to do with we had to reverse the sewing, but we've deleted it. Now let's go again. Somehow we're gonna get this bow on to the dress today. So I've moved it even a little closer by selecting all the pattern pieces, okay? Remember, not one and not the other. You have to select all of them if you need to move the whole thing as a unit. Now let's segment sew again, see what happens. Okay, this time everything seems to be fine. We simulate, and here it's attached. So, okay, so now with the bow attached, the color really doesn't go so well with the dress unless you like different colors, cold colors and warm colors together. I mean, it depends. Um, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the color. So the color that's applied to the bow, we need to change that color. So we go over to the property editor. And we find a color. For example, we can go into the palette library by clicking on that arrow there in the color library here. And we have these beautiful pastel colors too. Here it's like an apricot color we can select and see if that goes. We'd go out and we'll apply to the bow itself. Let's just apply that apricot color. Okay. It looks really similar to the other colors, so I may want to change it up a bit, make it even slightly darker. So we can go back, we shift the color palette, the color dialog box a bit so we can see exactly what's going on in the 3D window. So we go back to the apricot, but we go back and we just in that window there we gonna tweak it a bit, like just slightly darker. And when you're satisfied, you could just click OK. Now, for me, it's just too glossy and that's too flat. So what I'm going to do, put it back on silk, but I'm going to, in the property editor, I'm going to tweak the gloss a little bit. I'm just going to just turn it down, the value a little. So we don't have the bow that it's not going to be too shiny. So I think I like this better. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.